Welcome to the What's Already podcast, where we fashion ourselves television judge and jury. What's so fucking funny? My name's JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-host, Mattson.
Better red than dead.
And Alec Burgess.
Let's get it.
Oh, shit. I just want to get it out there. He's not here yet, but he better be. I hate you, Charles. I hate you. This suit is so hot, and you can't even see most of it. Like it's hot.
JJ, why don't you tell our listeners why you're in a wizard getup today?
Yeah, a few episodes back, we were doing lives, and Charles, our Patreon, he's our patron, he paying customer, got on and said that he wanted me to dress up for the finale. So here we are. I am a wizard for the finale. Just call me Fatagas the Brown. Yeah, dude, seriously, like, you know how hard it is for fat kids to find costumes? It doesn't work. Like, I'd show you, but I'm not standing up. So, it doesn't fit very well. But, hey, it's there, you know? So, I did what I said I was going to do. And, yeah, it's going to be a miserable hour. Let's make this the shortest episode we've ever had of our live show. With that, let's talk. We're here to talk about Rings of Power. And then later on, we'll talk about Charles says the great and powerful kahuna. No staff, dude. It was hard enough finding this shit that fit my ass. So no, there's no staff. This was a difficult find, and I am really hot. So yeah, but thanks for that, Charles. Yeah, so let's talk Rings of Power. The finale. It's done. It's over. Spoilers inbound. So if you haven't seen it, yikes. Now's the time to not listen any further. But I have issues, but overall, I enjoyed it. I have some concerns. I don't want to say I have issues. I want to say I have concerns. That's what I have. But before we get into those, let's talk about what the episode did well. I thought it was a great culmination of what we've seen over the last 7 episodes. I thought there was a little bit of everything. We've set up season 2 in a lot of different ways, in some really interesting ways, in my opinion.
There was a wizard.
There was a wizard that was introduced, and we know exactly who he is now. At least those of us that have some deep cut lore. Shut up, Mattson. God, this thing's hot. That have some deep cut lore. Those of us that know that we are now dealing with Gandalf the Grey. Yeah, so that's who the stranger is. Though they did try to throw a curveball. I did laugh at Alec. He sent me a text. He's like, this is bullshit. Like 12 minutes into the episode, he's like, I don't like where this is going.
Yeah, they had me fooled with their Sauron thing. And
Yeah.
I was like, dude, you 3 have to be the most incompetent little cronies ever.
Well, and
they were so cool and menacing.
I know.
And it turns out they're just like the 3 Stooges.
Yeah, and then they weren't. And I think the only thing about that concerned me was at the end when he like dissipates them, like you get to see them in like
moth form.
Yeah, well, not only that, but before that, you see them on the other side of the veil or whatever you want to call it, like you saw in the Peter Jackson trilogy with the ring wraiths. And so I was like, that's interesting. You'd think someone that is on that side of it could tell that, you know, he's not Sauron.
This isn't the dude you're looking for.
Yeah, like, come along now.
Yeah, that part was I'm with you there.
Yeah, I mean, visually it was cool. I liked it visually. My hat's falling off. Visually it was cool, but it gave me concern for who these kids were. And I guess, I mean, they were pretty incompetent because they got wrecked pretty quick and pretty easily. So I don't know. But that was like my least favorite part, was that we had this setup with these menacing characters following, and then yeah, there we are. Oh, Charles has got a great point here. He said, I thought that it couldn't be Gandalf due to the big time difference in the book. Yeah, so did we. That was my next concern, is And okay, and let me say this with concern. I get why it's Gandalf. I really do. I understand, and as a lore nerd, and I'm not even on Alec's level of lore nerd here on this particular topic, but I'm still a pretty deep lore nerd for the Lord of the Rings, and understanding that, I go, that can't be Gandalf, even on a truncated timeline. You're in the wrong age. But at the same time, I understand that they didn't write this show and they didn't produce this show only for nerds like me and Alec. Like, they have to make money. They have to get viewers. And so one way to do that is to introduce probably the most popular character in the Lord of the Rings, because he was one that carried over from Lord of the Rings to the Hobbit trilogy. No matter how you feel about that, Sir Ian McKellen is amazing, and he played Gandalf amazingly. So I do understand why they're using this well-known character because it brings people in that wouldn't come if there wasn't some tie to people that they knew. Because as it stands, other than Galadriel, which is a very different version of Galadriel than we saw even in the trilogy, they don't know anybody. I mean, Elrond, sure, but he was in the trilogy for a minute. So it's like, you have to be careful, and you have to be able to draw people that aren't deep lore nerds like me and Alec. So
Yeah, I'll say this. Like, I know enough about Lord of the Rings, but I'm an very edging nerd. I don't know, for lack of a better term. Like, I wanted to get there. One of my favorite songs that came out this week is "Edging" by Blink-182.
nice.
Nice. But I don't mind that it's Gandalf. Like, it could be someone else, but I'm just entertained. Like, I mean, the culmination of how this all came together and where we're going, like, I'm pumped. And for me, what they gave and how they set it up, that's all I'm looking for. And I know, if this was like The Way of Kings, it's a very popular book franchise. It's going to be like 7 to 10 books. If they did this in truncated timeline and change some things, would I be more pissed because I know everything? Probably. But because I don't, I'm just so happy, and I'm just excited what I'm seeing, like the twist in this episode, how we're getting to the point of a story that I do know pretty well, and the build up to it. I'm loving it. So I guess I'm more of the, if you guys are on like the super nerd scale, I'm more towards the middle, and middle me is very happy.
Yeah. Well, and I'll even say that fringe me, like deep cut nerd, is pretty happy. I just had a thing. Charles had a great point that I need to segue into, and that is, this broadcast just took a huge turn. Edging?
And we know Charles is all about it with all the weird stuff we watch for him.
Yeah. Now, I will say that I do think, keeping with the edging theme, I think they might have shot their shot a little early with the whole Sauron reveal. Like, because I think they could have revealed Gandalf as the stranger as Gandalf, and still carried some. I would have liked to have seen Sauron's secret held on to a little bit longer and into season 2. Now, that's not to say that I'm poo-pooing what they've done. I think that there's still some cool things that they can do with season 2 and Sauron, but I would have liked to have seen them hold on to at least one giant secret, because right now both of them that I was like, what's going to happen, are who is who. They're gone, and we know now what there is. So there's no more twists for the most part available. There might be some, but they're not going to be as big. But that was my only. But again, I don't mind the reveal. I don't mind how it was revealed. I don't mind the change to Halbrand versus oh my gosh, Anatar. I'm okay with all of that, because I understand that too. It's the same principle as Gandalf. You can't just drop in an elf, this beautiful elf that's helping Celebrimbor, and not have us go, yeah, I know who that is. You know what I mean? So you have to have some of that for deep cut nerds to not go, oh, I know exactly who Sauron is. So I really liked that they made, and now that I've seen it, I went back and I was watching previous episodes, and I was like, oh man, they just hand it to us on a silver platter. I'm like, how did I miss all of the comments and things that he said and did to catch it. And we talked about it one episode, Alec. You and I were like, it could be him because of a couple of things. Like he might be doing the double trick on Galadriel wanting to stay in Numenor. But I also like the play that they've put on with kind of like the penitent Sauron, because there was a time during the Silmarillion era and the Unfinished Tales era where he talked about after Morgoth was destroyed, he didn't want to keep being that big of a dick, right? Like, so he was like, I want to, he wasn't trying to say I want to be like, you know, a great hero, but he was trying to say, I'm okay not being, I just want to live a simple life. And he didn't try that hard, but there was a piece of that Tolkien talked about. So I like that.
What's Sauron's motivations? Why does he want to enslave Middle Earth and rule?
Because he wants to bring peace.
Yeah.
Is in
peace through strength?
In Christianity, is he Tolkien's version of Satan?
In a way, yeah. Like him and Morgoth both. It was about, for them it's about, I can make sure that everyone lives in peace because they'll live how I tell them to.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense, because that's what I'm learning more of Sauron's backstory. I was like, okay, it seems like this is what Tolkien is trying to reference, and sounds like the nerds agree.
Yeah.
And JJ, I just want to say, everything you said, I just totally couldn't listen because you're wearing a wizard hat. So every time you move it, the brim flaps a little bit. And Charles, yes, there's probably a good chance that we'll have a TikTok video on edging.
Now, let's not be premature. We don't know exactly what's going to be happening on TikTok, okay?
Oh, it's the freaking line that just keeps on giving, man. I'm telling you.
So I have a question that I want to ask Alec. In terms of these 3 rings, well, I understand their purpose to an extent, but I know we have to get more rings. And now that Sauron is known, I'm just curious. I thought the rings and the creation was going to still kind of happen later, but then it just happened this episode. I thought I'm curious now, how do we think we're getting the human king rings and such? Because I feel like the cat's kind of out of the bag.
It's a little bit. So Sauron goes and makes the rings kind of in secret, and then goes to the men and the dwarves without the elves knowing about it, and tells them about the rings. The elves keep their rings, and they keep them out of Sauron's influence, but they don't do very much to help the other races. It's kind of like the elves are for the elves.
So, and that leads into another question. Explain to me, the elves know that Sauron could do something with these rings, but because they keep them in-house, and when you say out of his influence, how do they do that when Sauron wanted them to make these in the first place?
I think it has something to do with the fact that it was Celebrimbor. I think they do something extra with the rings, add extra layer of protection. I don't remember exactly what
is it the 3 where if they didn't come with the 3, because he said 1 corrupts, 2 divides, 3 provides some sort of balance. So if they didn't add that 3rd aspect, that 3rd ring, maybe it would have done what Sauron was hoping. So maybe they kind of thwarted his plans in a way. I'm
a little bit. That's pretty on point.
Yeah, and in the end, it was, like Alex said, it's my understanding too, and I don't remember the exact lore on it, but my understanding too is that because Celebrimbor made them from start to finish, there wasn't any magics that were in place that allowed them to be controlled by the One Ring. The difference between those and the 9 and the 7 is that Sauron himself makes those, and so he makes them so that they will be enslaved, or at least controlled in part by the One Ring.
So why then, he knowing that was probably going to happen, why have them and give them the suggestions to make the rings? Because if the elves disappeared, it only made his life even easier.
Well, we say a little bit in the show is he gets found out, so he's got to take a hike.
Yeah, so I guess if Galadriel didn't realize that, okay, I got it. So he kind of got, his plan was thwarted in a way. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and he would have stayed and hung out, because the one thing about him that I like the way that the guy that plays Halbrand played it was he does have mad respect for Celebrimbor, like, because Celebrimbor is, and they kind of don't show it very well in this show. That's one issue that I've had, is Celebrimbor kind of looks like a knucklehead half the time, but I get that that's part of the storytelling. It's hard to. The scenes would be wasted if they spent showing him being as cool as he actually is. You have to take that exposition for what it's worth and understand that he is probably the greatest smith on the planet at the time.
Mhm.
Now, Sauron has some massive skill, as did Morgoth, in their ability to smith. And they did have a mutual respect for Celebrimbor and what he was able to do. So I liked that he was like giddy school kid when he walks in. He goes, "You're Celebrimbor, oh my," and then they start working together, and he's all pumped and figuring things out together. Because that's when I've read the Silmarillion and I've read the notes and all the appendices and stuff like that. Like that's the feeling that you get, is that they really enjoyed working together before it came to light what was going on. So I really liked the way that they played that. But yeah.
And was the being found out, was that true to form in terms of what was written, like to an extent, or did they embellish that?
They took their own storytelling liberties, right? Because the Southlands isn't really a thing. So they took this story of the Southlands, this broken line of kings, for Galadriel to kind of connect the dots. In reality, or in the lore, it was just that they kind of, caught on to his idea and his plan, and he let slip a couple of things that he shouldn't have. And they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, we don't really trust you," and he had to kind of take a hike.
Yeah,
get out of Dodge.
I quite like that. And that actor that plays Halloran, like he was so smooth, and you could. It's funny, JJ mentioned that you could. Once I realized, it's confirmed with him. I've seen of all the things that he said before, and the one that stuck out to me was Galadriel when she's like, "I've never seen a smith like wield a blade like that," or something. You're like, yeah, obviously, because that's Sauron. So yeah,
yeah.
Amongst other things that I'm sure he kind of said and did along the way.
What I really liked with this show, kind of seeing everything go back, is how much, and it's kind of mentioned, but how much Galadriel projected her own kind of hate, thoughts, feelings onto Halbrand as Sauron. And he kind of is like, "I wanted to stay in Numenor, right? You saved me on the raft. I didn't want to go to the Southlands. You made me do A, B, C, D, and E. This is all your fault."
It's true.
Which is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Because it plays into the, Galadriel's this vengeful kind of warrior archetype. And, if she had just gone to Valinor, none of this would have happened.
Yeah.
So it was very well played by the showrunners.
Well, it's a question I had, because if she had gone to Valinor and Sauron was on that ship, like what was going to happen to him? Wouldn't he die?
I mean, I'm sure he would have landed somewhere, but I think he would have tried to keep himself hidden. Here's the thing: is Sauron was never going to keep himself hidden forever. Like, he just doesn't have it in him to live a simple life. It's just not who he is. But eventually, he would have run into some sort of land or died, maybe.
So it was kind of by chance they ran into each other, but then he obviously had to see this as an opportunity, and he kept kind of playing it out, and it kept playing into his favor, and he just kind of let it happen to an extent.
And that's pretty true to the lore as well, as Sauron's the biggest opportunist out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That guy piggybacks his way to some success quite often.
I think what's hard for like the middle line person that's seen the Lord of the Rings, that's maybe read the books like a person like me, is my viewpoint of Sauron is just he's either the eye or he's this big bad warrior that doesn't look like a human being or acts or probably feels like a human being. So seeing Sauron be a in human form, have emotions and such, is hard for me to wrap my head around, which I'm liking it, but it's hard to, because I think I look at Sauron as someone that's very black and white. It's wants evil, destruction, takeover, warrior thing, and this other side of it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, which is fun for me to kind of dive into that, but it's hard for me to wrap my head around.
Yeah, and a lot of that's kind of deep lore stuff, because when we see Sauron in Lord of the Rings, we're seeing endgame Sauron. He's lost his ability to kind of shapeshift into his fair form, they call it. At this point, he's just fed up with everybody. So he's just out for blood. And in the Second Age, like JJ was saying, it's a different Sauron in a lot of cases. So I really like what they've done with it.
Mhm.
and his whole character and his whole story. It's awesome. And yeah, I mean, I had my own problems a little bit with the show, but was thinking about it, and I was like, I bet it's just the showrunners being nervous.
Mm.
They're tackling Tolkien, and they know it's going to get ripped to pieces. And so anytime I was thinking about this the other day, and I went back and watched a couple episodes, I was like, I bet they were just scared out of their mind. And we see these little blips or these little hiccups that don't make sense or don't connect.
Well, so they just did an interview. You should go read it. They just did an interview after the season ended where they talked a lot about, and the one thing to their credit, like they knew going in, people were going to shit on the series because you can't. Now, look, I'd like to say that us Tolkien fans aren't the same as some of my other fandoms that I'm a part of.
Star Wars.
Like Star Wars,
Brutal.
where it's, yeah, I mean, where they're, I mean, they can be super, yeah, it's toxic and it's ugly and it's gross. I don't think Tolkien fans that are as bad, but I think there's an element just like with all of them. And because I've seen some YouTube videos and articles and comments that I'm like, you guys are weird. Like this was a good show. Like it was interesting. And they said, we knew we were going to have people that hated it. He goes, and all we were trying to do was find a way to balance the people that liked it and people that were with people that knew what they were talking about, kind of knew what they were watching and didn't know what they were watching really at all. He goes, and to do that, we had to make some changes and we had to make some truncations. We had to make things a little different. And he specifically mentioned the Halbrand thing versus Anatar. He said, there's certain things we want to try to keep some intrigue to this show, but you just don't know. Right. So I think to your point though, Alec, I mean, you could tell that they were like, yeah, we understood the massive weight of what we were doing, and so we just decided we were going to do what we were going to do and hope that it worked out. So I respect it, and like I said,
Yeah.
I enjoyed the show. I thought it was really cool.
Once I had my timeline question answered, I enjoyed
Sure.
it too. Those first couple episodes, I took a steaming dump on it, but
yeah, I was pretty mad.
after they let me know what was going on, I was like, okay, I can get behind this, and it ended really well.
Yep, I liked it. I will say there's a couple things I'm looking forward to. They kind of hinted at the Black Numenorians, which I'm very intrigued by. And seeing the only thing I'm not a huge fan of, and this is nitpicky as hell, is I don't yet understand why they gave Elendil a daughter that didn't exist in the books anywhere, and how she's going to play into this. I mean, I'm sure she'll be a foil for Elendil himself and the Queen regent, but I don't know. There's a lot of things that are left over on the Numenor side, but I'm really excited that we have now that division, and we'll probably see some of the black Numenorians, which with the sigils that were hanging from the boat, I thought that was great. I got really excited. I was like, I don't know what that is. So
sorry, why are you excited for?
Numenor is going to have a civil war.
Yeah,
it's probably where second season.
Okay, because I could see they showed that the politician that clearly he did not look happy, and it seemed like, yeah, even me, I could start to see there was a divide, but I guess that's written in that there's a civil war, which sounds dope.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool. Really cool. So,
and what about Isildur's? He's just going to stay underneeth the hut the entire time?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised they didn't at least
in Mordor.
I thought we would have gotten like a little flash hint or something. But there's something, Jay, where we don't know where he's at, so that's a reveal and such. But yeah, I thought we were gonna get like anything. Yeah. But
I thought we'd get at least something. You know what I mean? But who knows? But yeah, I mean, that's the one thing about Isildur is, I mean, we know he comes back. So unless you're gonna mutilate the canon, we know he comes back. So there's a difference between tweaking it a little bit and
changing it.
Maybe he's gonna get tougher.
Off of freaking
he's gonna get tougher in the wilderness, because right now he's a pussy.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Charles sent us one last question. I think it's a great one for us to use for us to wrap up talking about Rings of Power, and then we can jump into House of the Dragon. So here it is. Charles, curious what y'all thought of the season overall. If you'll be rewatching season 1 a few times before season 2 drops. Latest news is, this was going to come out too. Season 2 might not be out till 2024. That was another thing that was in that article that with the interview, is that they talked about they haven't even started production on season 2. so it's probably going to be a Westworld type situation where we're a couple of years between seasons instead of 1 year. I'll start and then let's just go around the horn. I overall really like the season. I thought there was I'm with Alec. Once I understood the timeline ish and the fact that they were going to truncate and keep everything similar, but make some changes for television and for the sake of storytelling, I was okay. Then I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm interested to see where Galadriel goes. I think they've set up based on this whole Sauron and her having this realization that she's been helping Sauron this whole time. Even though her goal at the beginning was to destroy Sauron, like that's been her whole thing this whole season. It makes sense to me as a way for her to become the Galadriel we know in the books and the trilogy, where she says, look, I don't want to screw up like that again. So I'm going to just rule as an elf queen. I'm going to create Lorien, whatever it might be. I'm sure we won't get that right out of the gate, but I can see where that leads us down that road over the next 4 seasons that they have planned. Yes, I will probably I've already started rewatching season 1 because I was curious once the reveal of Sauron and Halbrand. I wanted to see what I missed because they talked about the fact there were tons of hints that throughout, and already in the first 3 episodes, I'm like, holy shit, like there's a lot that I was like, damn, I should have figured that out subconsciously. There were so many damn hints. So I'm excited. So yeah, I'll probably watch it, finish rewatching it as I have been, and then I'll probably watch it like I do Westworld before it starts up whenever season 2 is released. So that's me. Mattson, what about you, buddy?
Yeah, I read my mind. I'll go. We can bookend it with our resident LOTR nerd. For me, you've already heard it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't know as many of the deep cuts and things, but it's cool to see some characters that I knew to an extent, but also in a very different way. And then characters like Halbrand, that's supposed to be Anatar and such, that had no idea who they were going to be, but a character like, as I just talked about before, Sauron, that I know motivations and some things, but the backstory is just extremely intriguing to me. I'm really excited about Adar, who we haven't really talked about, that obviously wasn't part of this last episode, but I'm very excited to see how that rolls in, how Sauron Halbrand like overtakes the Southlands, aka Mordor, what that looks like. Was that part of the plan, or is, as you guys talked about, Sauron's very opportunistic and realizes, hey, this fits what I'm trying to do. Sweet. I'm excited. Visually appealing. The music was great. The acting was top notch. One of the best TV shows, especially for a first season, that I can think of really ever. I mean, there's, as you talked about, so many, just such high standards for this show, even for someone like me that knows enough about Lord of the Rings. Wasn't sure if it was going to be that good, and they really delivered. I'm excited about season 2. I definitely will rewatch this. I'm not going to go back and rewatch it right now. We watch enough things right now that I will wait, and definitely when season 2 does come out, unfortunately, maybe not until 2024, which is far away, I'll definitely rewatch for sure.
Sweet. All right, Alec, bring us home.
All right. Well, that makes 3 that enjoyed it. Overall, it was pretty good. I do think that if they're going to do like a 2-year gap in between shows like Westworld, they have to up their game. This isn't as good as Westworld, in my opinion. But it is their first season. They were tackling a monumental task of, trying to build on Tolkien's works. Left a lot of questions unanswered for me personally. Like, is the Balrog actually awake, or is he still sleeping? What's going on with the elves and trying to stay? Are the rings going to be enough? What are they planning there? And then why is Gandalf going east? You don't go east in Middle Earth. So a lot of little questions for me. So I'm excited for, season 2 to hopefully answer them. I am a little bit concerned, I guess, that they did so much in season 1 that now we may not get, more of like Durin and the dwarves until the end of season 2 or maybe even season 3, because they have so much storytelling that they have to do now. So I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. I will be watching it again multiple times before season 2 drops. So, yeah.
Shoot, I hope we just get a spinoff of Durin and the dwarves, because that whole story intrigues me.
Hilarious. Loved it. Yeah, there was a lot. Like, we didn't even really touch on, like, we talked about Gandalf and we talked about that piece of it, but we didn't really talk about Nori. I liked the way that their story ended too, and then we didn't, of course, talk about Durin because we didn't see the dwarves in this episode. But yeah, lots to talk about. And I didn't even think about going east. You don't go east. That's not where you go.
Yeah,
in Middle Earth. So
Why is that? Because there's nothing to the east.
that's where all the cults of Mordor, Morgoth, and Sauron.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking about it.
the
Yes.
Easterlings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And Gandalf doesn't even have a name over there. So
yeah. What's that place? I don't even remember the name of the
Rune.
That's right, Rune. Yeah, it should be interesting. It's not a fun place to be, the East.
But it's cool because we haven't seen it before.
It's true.
So I'm excited to see it.
One other, is Legolas alive in this second age?
Mm-mm.
No, he does. He's born until third age.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I did like that we saw the wood though. What's the green wood?
Greenwood.
I was like, yay, that's awesome. Anyway. Yeah, well, there it is. That's Rings of Power. Season's over. That's 2 shows we don't have to watch next week. I don't know what we're gonna do. We're
gonna have
so
time
much
back.
free time.
take a nice break for a minute for some of this stuff. But
Oh,
yeah, we're. But I, this one I'm actually sad to see go. Unlike She-Hulk, where I was like, thank God. This one I'm actually sad. I wish we had another 1 or 2 episodes left in it. But overall, really good. But now it's time to shift gears. Stick with us. If you've been watching live, hang out. We're going to move over and start talking about House of the Dragon. So keep that in mind. We're going to do the little video to transition through for editing purposes and when we edit these down to single videos. But Charles, thank you for tuning in, buddy. He says, thanks for your words of wisdom, Kahuna. God, I can't believe I wore this shit. Anyway, it's too hard to take off with like the 15-second video that we're going to play. So I'll still be in it for House of the Dragon. But before then, I think it's Alec's turn. Alec, tell everybody where they can find us, man.
Thank you for tuning in to the season finale of Rings of Power. We will be back with season 2 in 2024. Yes, we will still be around. In the meantime, we are still going live for Andor on Thursdays at 5 p.m.
Pacific.
So tune in there for more wackadoodle content. We appreciate the support of our wonderful listeners, and the best way to help us grow the channel and corrupt more innocent bystanders is liking the episodes and commenting where you can. We are on every major platform except for OnlyFans, but if you want us to set up one of those, feel free to slide in our DMs. Lastly, most importantly, thank you to our amazing patron, JJ Screaming Goats. Right. Your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries, but we still love you. If you guys enjoy the content we put out and would like to more directly support us, you can find us on Patreon. And by joining there, you too can be a recipient of slightly insulting yet hilarious callouts. What was your verdict on Rings of Power? Let us know in the comments below. Back to you, JJ.
Sweet. Thanks, Alec. With that, we appreciate you tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Cinemagic out.